As you can probably see, neither the light or the tides are ready for me just yet, but I'm making best use of my time. I've had some nice chips, and what I'm doing is I'm just looking around the beach so that when the tide does come in, and I am promised high tide by the moon personally said to me, don't worry Ben, I've got you covered. I know you've been to Hunstanton before and I forgot to get the tides right for you, but this time I am promised sunset with the tide coming in. So I am back. I've come back to Hunstanton nearly 2 years later. Last time I was here, we were just given our freedom after lockdown, and the joy on my face last time I was here, until I found out that I'd completely misjudged the tides. And as you can probably see in the background here right now, low tide does not work for this location, and I'm probably about 2 hours off sunset, and I hope to get some long exposures of these cedar fences here with high tide. I'm here for one night, so I've got one sunset and one sunrise, and I don't actually have high tide for both of them, so fingers crossed. In terms of advice, I forgot what I've said 2 years ago, so I might rewatch my video and see, but I'm pretty sure this groin that I'm stood next to, which is the southernmost cedar fence, is the one that I picked at last time, just making sure it's still in good condition 2 years later, so that when the conditions are right, I'm ready to go. There's also there's like a metal structure. Yeah, this, I don't know what it's called, but you get the idea. Funny story, kind of. I think my Hunstanton video is the only landscape photography on location video that I've made where I didn't actually take a single photograph when I was here. Essentially, I turned up and the tides were completely wrong, and I just salvaged the whole thing by showing you my old photographs. What a cop-out. But when I was here, I was literally had my head in my hands, and I was literally just sulking, thinking this is a long way to come to get the tides wrong. I think I sometimes just show you all the good bits, but that was a great video in terms of, here you go, I messed up. I still make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I messed up. Here's a great example of me messing up, but I still made a video and I still put it out there. The tide's coming in too quickly now. This is a really, really contrasty shot, hence me being a silhouette, but I'm going to try and get the sun in the middle of this. That's a bit of a ridiculous shot, but I'll continue to try and make this work. Really tough composition. Okay, so here's the problem I've got. The sun is setting. We are about half an hour off the sunset, and because all of these zigzag cedar fences face pretty much just west, I'm shooting straight into the sun, and there are no clouds. It's literally just clear sky and sun. So I think I'm just gonna have to wait it out for a bit, because it's just way too contrasty. It does not make for nice photographs. And I've been here quite a few times, and I think I remember getting some pretty handy shots at sunrise. Therefore you're not shooting into the sun. But I think this whole scene is just going to calm down a bit once the sun has actually set, and then the tide will be a bit further in. But I know, and this is my concern, that when the sun goes down, these dark zigzag cedar fences no longer have any shape. They don't have any light to them, and they're just going to become a big dark mass in the foreground. And even though the general lighting conditions will be easier to deal with, I don't think that the foreground is going to work anymore. That's my concern. And if that does happen after sunset, it's got nothing to do with the light conditions itself. This probably just isn't a sunset location. And maybe that's why this is the second time I've been here at sunset and I've been struggling. First with the tides and now with the light. In the meantime, I'm just shooting some long exposures of this. This is a lot more difficult than it needs to be, I think, but I've got some really good tips if you are going to come here. First of all, wellies are an absolute must. Right now I'm standing on the zigzags, and what happens is I set my tripod up precariously. The taller the tripod, the better, because when you're composing this image, ideally you want your camera as high up as possible and you're pointing it downwards so that you get separation between each of the zigzags. You get water in between all of them. If you shoot it low, then they all kind of just blend into each other. All right, I'm really struggling here, so I think this video is to be continued in the morning. Right, so it's the next morning, and I have to say I feel a bit like a broken record going up and down this beach, because it's a good 15 or 20 minute walk from one end to the other. It is quite cloudy, but the good news is there is some texture in the sky, so I can definitely make this work for some long exposures. They will probably be black and white. This location is so tide dependent. You've just got to find what you're going to photograph and then wait for the right tide. I'm going to walk that way for about 15 minutes back to the southern end of the beach, because that's where the water reaches the foreground interest the first, and then we'll just take it from there. Probably just work my way up the beach to the north. Right, let's go. Sorry about the noise of the wind, it's quite consistent. I don't think it's going to stop. I've come to the southern end of the beach where there's this pipe leading out to the metal frame thing that I photographed at sunset, and the reason being is that the water is reaching this way before it's reaching everything else. So if you have a look right now, the tide is already around it, whereas the rest, the water is probably about 50 meters away from those. So, as I said previously, if you come to the southern end of the beach, the water hits here first. You can set your tripod up, take a couple of shots of this, and then work your way north as the tide comes in. That's my plan, so I'm just going to sit and wait for the tide to come in. Really windy out there, so I've sheltered behind some rocks. Good news is that I actually got some images that I'm quite happy with. That pipe thing with the metal structure, that's done, but that's almost on a completely different tide to the rest. It's probably an hour difference between that one and the others. So I'm gonna go and get myself some breakfast, then I'm gonna come back, and if it's not too windy, I'll do some pieces to camera. If not, I'm gonna take some images and then I'll come back to you. So I've had my breakfast, I'm back on the beach, and the tide is where I want it to be, and it's coming in, which is all good. Now I've come to the southern end of the beach, which is where I was before, where you've got that metal pipe and that red metal structure. And the reason being is that these cedar fences are not numbered. The rest of them have a circular sign on them and they're all numbered. Some of you might want that, but I think that might be a little bit distracting. I quite like the look of number 17 and number 13, and the reason being is each of these cedar fences have kind of been battered by the sea to a different extent, so therefore some of them look better than others, and I think you just have to kind of figure out for yourself which ones you like the look of. I've also switched lenses. I've switched to the 16-35. The reason being is I'm going to put the camera as high as possible and I'm going to shoot as wide as possible, therefore distorting the gaps between each of the zigzags, and therefore it will have more of a dramatic effect and you'll have less of the kind of heavy looking dark cedar fence. That's the plan. Let's see if it works out. I'm pretty happy with that. I think I found the solution. So essentially, I declare this a sunrise location. I mean, you can come here at sunset, stay the night. There's actually a campsite on the other side of that wall. The last 2 times I've been here, it has been consistently windy, so you just need to be aware of that. You need to be bringing the most sturdy tripod you've got, ideally one with spikes, because sometimes you might end up putting your tripod actually on the cedar fences, and they are timber and they're quite slippery. So if you've got spikes, you can kind of just dig them in a little bit. That's going to help everything. One thing that you do need to take care of though, because I'm saying come here at sunrise, is your own shadow appearing in the foreground, especially if you're shooting with a wide angle lens. So that's one thing you just need to consider. Make sure you're looking for your shadow. This camera that's filming just got blown over. It took a bit of a fall. Gives you an idea of how windy it is here. This is a good solid tripod, and the whole camera just landed sideways, and now it's covered in sand. It wasn't filming, but if I was, then I would do what any good YouTuber would do and show you the footage of my camera slamming against the beach, but no harm done, I don't think. It's just covered in sand, and my camera will probably sound gritty for eternity. Okay, well, good news, kind of. It looks like the filter on the front of my lens took the brunt of it, so everything else is okay. My filter is scratched to hell, so that's going to get replaced. There you go, that's another thing to consider if you are coming here. Perhaps you need to hang your camera bag on your tripod to make sure that it stands upright, because it is quite windy here. I'm pretty happy with some of the images that I've got here, but hopefully if you are going to visit Hunstanton, you now know what you need to be doing. In my opinion, this is a sunrise location. You need wellies, you need a good tripod that's as high as possible, and probably a wide angle lens, and that should get you some sweet looking images. Hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been tough to make. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.